Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Green Wisdom Health Show. I'm Janet Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Lewis.
And we are here to bring you exciting information about acne, wrinkles, and rashes. Doesn't that sound fun? Last week was on skin and, gut issues, and today because of such a great feedback, we are going to talk about acne and wrinkles and where rashes come from, because so many people have skin issues. We had a lady that actually just broke out from taking some natural products. I mean, she just completely swole up and her whole skin was just a big inflammatory process. So Dr. Lewis is going to talk a lot today about the outside of the body and what's really the most important culprit, which is the inside of the body. So if you could explain to us how acne and wrinkles and rashes on the outside have anything to do with what's going on inside, we would appreciate your input.
It has everything to do. And really the hardest thing about these podcasts are naming it, except for staying on the right rabbit trail, not jumping on another one. But it doesn't really matter. If we talk about skin, we're talking about the GI tract. We're talking about the detoxification of your kidneys and liver. You got two choices. You can detox or intox. So, most people say, I want to be intoxed, but you want to give your body enough nutrients that it can detox. And I'm just explaining skin because, I just kind of got off that rabbit trail and stayed on it a while. Still have a lot of information on it. But everything I say about the skin is equally applicable to everything in the body. One of the things that can make for good skin or bad skin is there's an immune stimulation that goes on in response to stress, regardless of the cause. And stress can be mental. Most people create their own stress. The old saying of most people create their own storms and then they complain when it rains. Most people, it's stress because you think about things incorrectly. And that's why I tell you to read books, listen to tapes, talk to people that can help you think differently and be less stressful. But it can be chemical stress, financial stress, being married to the wrong person stress. Okay, enough about that. Chronic stress actually can cause the issues as far as high cortisol, which blows your adrenals and goes to low cortisol. But it actually increases your risk of infection, and that's when it gets moderately prolonged type stress. So people that get infections a lot, it may be because of what would seem to be a totally unrelated stress and them not dealing with it correctly. And we deal with it nutritionally, but we also try to pump people up and be positive and give them a reason to live and make that connection. Well, if you get healthy, therefore your family can be more blessed. The immune system gets ramped up under chronic stress, and then the longer that goes on, the more likely you are to have an autoimmune disease. You've heard us talk about the different autoimmune diseases and how it's always partially part of the answer or part of the equation is the GI tract. And, we've talked about gluten, and that's one of the chronic stresses. I'm not totally gluten-free, but I've certainly cut it way, way, way back. And Janet just did our lab yesterday morning. It's coming in. It's not final yet. And Janet's doing really, really good. We've made some incredible improvements with her immune system. I'm doing real good in some areas, but here's something I want to talk about. Even if you're taking the right stuff, you may not be absorbing it, because I take 1 K-Force and 1 to 3 of our good vitamin D. So I'm getting at least 10, if not 20,000 IUs a day of the good vitamin D. And my vitamin D tested at 40. And I know that's in the range, but that's woefully inadequate. So either I'm not absorbing correctly, and that's why you have to go to the gut, even if it's wrinkles in the skin. You got to think gut. So I'm not absorbing, or I'm actually using too much of a lot of my vitamin D to let my body detox and fight off some kind of major chronic stress. So see, high or low doesn't always mean you still have to plug in other pieces of the equation.
Well, and the other part of that, because people always say, can't you overdose taking too many vitamins? Can't your system not know what to do with that because you've thrown so many in? Honestly, you wouldn't believe what I throw in. And like Dr. Lewis said, it's like, well, I'm taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D as well. My vitamin D came back at a 56. It was like, okay, well, it's in the range, but it isn't like it's high. But the issue is digestion. For both of us, even with us taking everything, it was a lack of an ability to actually break down what we're putting in. So you can put the good things in, but if you don't have great digestive enzymes, you may not be absorbing all of that. So it actually takes more of it to get in before you absorb it. Or in our case, we're going to add a little bit of betaine hydrochloric acid to help the chloride go up, because that actually helps burn up all the things that you're putting in a little bit better and help you utilize it, because you start losing your chloride levels the older you get. And we're both so young, we want to make sure that we keep our chloride. But that's the main thing, is like you really don't know without lab whether or not you're taking the right products or you're not. And people say, well, I'm taking this, I think it's this. I'm like, you don't know what it is unless you do lab. Lab is a big eye opener, and it's usually not anything you think it is that's wrong.
You misdiagnose it on Google usually.
Oh yeah, and people, you wouldn't believe the people all day long that tell me, well, I'm really sure it's my thyroid. Everybody has a thyroid problem according to them. And we get thyroids back, and they're beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's other things wrong, like a lot of poor digestion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Dr. Lewis is talking about, which leads to all these wrinkles.
And in order to get good elimination or detox, you have to have good digestion to start with, because if it's not really balanced, what happens is you create something called free radical, and that causes inflammation and a toxic accumulation in the matrix of the cells, and that'll break down the cells. For example, the extra toxins, say, of a smoker. Smokers almost always have many, many more wrinkles because it breaks down the matrix of the cell. It's doing that on cells that you can't see also. And I talk about the inflammatory cytokines, and that's there's a lot of research on cytokines, but it's not bad to have them. It's just bad to have too many of them, and ones that the body's not able to deal with. And when you decrease the matrix because you have too many of the pro-inflammatory cytokines, that alone means, okay, the cells are not detoxifying, and then you start breaking down the sponge-like material in there, and we'll get to more of that in a minute. But the cytokines, they have different messages that they steer the appropriate immune response. The two that I know of are Th1 or Th2, and the Th1 has to do with gamma tumor necrosis factors, and they kill these type invaders. When you have Th2, you have antibodies that are made, and people that have autoimmune diseases understand what I mean about antibodies. And it puts out things called interleukin 4, 5, 10, 13, and a lot of others. And that creates more of an allergic response, and we do have a supplement that'll deal with that too. But they generally are only produced, the cytokines are generally produced only under response to stress. So it can be anti-inflammatory or pro-inflammatory. So don't think cytokines are bad. They're just bad if you have one channel going one way and the other channel doesn't go the other way. You've got to get the health down to the cellular level. That's why we're talking about skin, but that counts for all the cells in your body. At one point, I tell people, you can change the manifestation of your disease until you get to a point where it's past the point of no return. And I tell people, because people ask me, can you cure cancer? I say no. You're past the point of no return. Please see an oncologist. Yes, The supplements can be complementary but not an alternative. Always see a good specialist for whatever you have and use the complementary nutrients to help. So there is a point of no return. There is a limitation of matter, so to speak. You can't do it all instantly like some people would like. It just does not happen that way. So when you talk about the stages of disease or the stages of skin degradation, you have to think about, number one, detoxification and drainage. And these massage therapists that do lymphatic drainage, highly recommend them. Go see them. And then you go into the second stage, which is immunomodulation, actually. And that's where you use the supplements, the protomorphogens. And what they do, they intervene in it's called autoregulatory response. But the immunomodulation, I think the next seriously good step is when you use glandulars. And I had a lady this morning says, I was doing this other doctor's protocol and I just couldn't stand it because it was a glandular and it tasted bad. And I said, the one I recommended right there is a glandular. She said, but it's in a capsule, it's not a tablet. Really and truly, if you can taste it first, it stimulates the brain to actually get more out of it. And I've had people that said, I don't want to get on this because it may affect my hormones. My body should be making it on its own. And I told one sweet young lady, I said, I know, honey, but you're 20 and it's not working. And you know what? If you take these glandulars many, many, many times, it's a wake-up call to your glands and they begin to work again. So glandulars, if a doctor gives you glandulars, it's usually a really good thing. And it can help put off the three pillars of disease prevention, if you will allow me to say it that way. I love glandulars personally, and we use a lot of them for thyroid, for adrenal, for thymus, for spleen, pituitary, hypothalamus, etc. Here's what I want you to know. This is kind of a Stephenism. Life's going to take you down a path, but how much disease do you want to avoid because you do have some control? Yep, you're not going to outrun your genetics, but you can sure greatly, greatly influence the genetic expression, and that is written in all sorts of research, including cancer research, that you can alter genetic expression. There's a lot of people that have not believed or agreed with this type of practice. Most of them are either dead, full of dementia, heart disease, and cancer, because they had the answer years ago and didn't have the faith to put it into action. Folks, disease is going to reach up and slap you on the butt. But to have good health, you have to work for it. And, we're all going to go down, but what kind of life did you have? What kind of energy did you have? How much fun did you have because you put the effort into being healthy? I'm glad I've done it, is all I can tell you. And it's made a huge, huge difference. So remember, when a doctor wants to put you on a glandular, that you can hear me in the back of your mind. And Dr. Lewis says that's a kick in the butt for your body to stimulate proper glandular function. It takes a minimum of 2 months. And so people say, 2 months. No, I said minimum. That's when it begins to start to work. So don't quit after 2 months. The lady I talked to this morning that didn't like the glandular from another functional doctor, she gave it 6 months. And I said, that's fair. Fair shake. And she said, but I like your program better. That's why I'm back. And she said, I feel better. And I know the doctor she was going to, who is a very, very good functional doctor. When you use these glandulars, it's really good for the long-term repair for chronic conditions. If it took you many months or years to get in that condition, please allow your body many, many months to get back on track. And when you do the glandulars, it's best if you do the adaptogenic herbs also. I talked last week about estrogens, like the pig in the parking lot takes up the space and doesn't give you a parking space. All different hormones have different parking spaces. for example, cortisol and progesterone, they kind of have two separate parking lots. And if the higher your cortisol, meaning high stress, the less your body's going to create progesterone. I see progesterone inadequacy, it's rampant. And you need progesterone, not just to carry a baby, to keep you pregnant till you have it, but it also helps detoxify those estrogens that are mimicked by plastics and pesticides, etc., etc. They're interrelated, but they have different parking lots. The skin regeneration is, I think, if you work on the skin, you're really working on the inside too. But the skin is probably more important than we give it credit for. It's really the largest organ of the body. It takes up, I think the number is 16% of your total body weight. And if you were to stretch it out, they say it'd be like 15 to 20 square feet. Well, some of us have more than others, that's for sure. Sometimes the skin regenerates too fast. And it's in response to an autoimmune problem, and those are the ones that have eczema or psoriasis, and the dry ones especially. One of the best things you can do is go to the far infrared sauna and sit in that, because that helps the body sweat out some of the toxins. You kind of have to watch sunlight for the skin. And that's kind of a confusing thing, because you need sunlight to help your body produce vitamin D, which actually is a hormone. But if it's the UVA that goes deep, UVB just kind of bounces off, but they create free radicals. And free radicals, people ask me what that is. I said it's like a bumblebee in a jar. It has to come up and out in order for your stress to decrease. And once they get that bumblebee analogy, they kind of understand a free radical. The regeneration, though, it's a long-term thing, and some of us are blessed with prettier skin than others. Janet has genetically much prettier skin. Mine, I didn't get that good of genetics, but my skin went downhill after I had 2 spider bites on my leg. It grew together, rotted, and all that. Most of my skin aging came after, the trauma. Keep in mind, free radicals from the spider bite poison, from the antibiotics that I got, from the candida overgrowth after all those antibiotics that really hurt me for at least 6 years. And that's where most of the aging took place. So see, folks, even though it was going on internally, it shows on my skin. And it's getting better with time, but you have to put a little bit of work into it. And how many of you have heard of the word histamine? The histamine response, most of it's made in the liver, but that the histamine response, there's some foods that are high in histamines, and those are the ones that create the allergy type factors, the snorting and snotting, as I would like to say. We do have things that will help with that, called natural dehist is one of the most effective. And then there's this thing called quercetin. Some people pronounce it quercetin. That is one of the best things you can do to reduce some of the histamine reactions, and you get a lot of those from the foods. Even the fermented foods that are super high in probiotics, that's a good thing, and I highly recommend you learn to do that, but they're also high in histamine. So think about the term quercetin or quercetin. These cells kind of have a memory of reactions, and it doesn't take much of a hint later to recreate allergies and the reactions to the toxins. It takes much less of a toxin once those cells have those memories and the hormone imbalances. So, barrier. Skin's always a barrier, and people say, I have acne, eczema, etc., etc. Oh, I have wrinkles. I said, well, when you have toxins coming out of the skin, that's just a very clear sign that you don't have enough proper bowel movements and you're not drinking enough water to flush the toxins out through the urinary tract. The skin has a lot of jobs like regulating body temperature. And It has a lot to do with absorption. Some people try to get their magnesium through skin absorption. That's not bad. I don't think that's the best way to get it, but it certainly can work that way. That's why the Epsom salts bath will take out some toxins, and you'll absorb enough of the magnesium to relax the muscles. That's a really good thing. Some of the worst things you can do for skin is sugar, refined carbohydrates, anything in a box or a bag, anything that's made from flour. Yeah, no, I hate to say that. Chocolate, that hurts because I love chocolate. Tea, coffee, I love coffee. Alcohol, and when you're constipated. Lack of exercise. If you have a doctor that doesn't stay active or exercise mildly, he or she may not be the best guide for you, but there's certain things you can put in your system that can help with all that, and believe it or not, by putting it in your GI tract, then it's very likely to help clear the skin. We've seen many examples of that. We see it every day.
So you mean if you're going to do bad things like coffee and things like that, you can replace it with something that might be less inflammatory or add to it so you're not cheating so bad or aging so fast?
She's looking at me when she's saying that, cheating so bad.
Well, the one thing I'm really excited about, I'm actually excited about two things. One of them is Inflammacore. We just got this in. It tastes fantastic. And it is a vanilla chai flavor. And I think it's because it reminds me of the lattes up at Starbucks. But not that I drink those, but it just seems to have some sort of correlation for me when you taste it.
Yeah, that's also young child approved by the taste.
Oh, yeah. It's there's some kind of fantastic, but it has tons of things to help cool and calm your gut, like glutamine, and it has the medium chain triglycerides and arabinogalactan for your immune system, lysine, glycine, quercetin, huge anti-inflammatory properties like turmeric, green tea, ginger, and the best thing about this is that it has rice protein. So if you're gluten intolerant, you can actually have this for a meal.
It's been very popular, I promise.
And it has flaxseed flour in it.
Flaxseed has omega-3s, the anti-inflammatory omega-3s.
So it's going to be great as a meal replacement. Not like you're going to replace every meal with it, but you could replace one meal with it and have something that was very inflammatory. The other one that we have that is actually coming, it should be here like within the next couple of days, is our new one for energy, which I think Dr. Lewis needs to do a show about energy because so many people don't have it. And I know we've done a few shows, but we have a new product coming called Mitocore, and it is in a powder form, and it's something you can drink as a meal replacement as well. We have the Mitocore capsules right now for energy, but it's coming as a strawberry protein powder.
But you need your spouse to mix it up if you don't have enough energy. So, Janet, would you make it for me?
Sure. I'm excited. It's like, that's another meal replacement. So you could have vanilla chai for one. You could have strawberry for another. And are you going to talk to us at all about how to not age so quickly, as far as things that we might be able to do to learn how to not age as fast? Because I think everybody wants to not age. Or may I talk about it? Because that's important to women.
Well, let me say this one thing. And this is not all inclusive, but for skin integrity and wrinkles, it's caused usually by lack of vitamin A, C, E, selenium, and zinc. But they also boost your immune system. So, the collagen, different collagens, and hyaluronic acid. But I think, Janet, you'd be better about talking about that because you look. She literally looks 10, maybe 15 years younger than she is. So
I do have good skin. But the Inflammacore is huge for like wrinkles and taking out the inflammation in your skin. But then there's other things that you should do, like learn how, like Dr. Lewis said, effectively cope with stress.
Be grateful. Grateful people have the least wrinkly skin, the ones that always see something good and smile the easiest. They're always giving compliments, giving money, giving thank you cards. I think one of the healthiest ways you can or maintain health is just spiritually.
Yeah, and like you said, take the animal-based omega-3 fats. The antioxidants from your foods, or from our new Mitocore powder, or from our new Inflammacore. We have all these new powders, so you don't have to swallow pills.
That would be me she's looking at.
Use coconut oil, like MCT oil. Or ours is called, we have one, we actually have two. We have one that's for cooking, the straight MCT oil that you've heard of. And then we have another one that is actually got some coconut flavors to it, and it's really good. Get your Resveratrol naturally.
You know, I had a patient the other day, and this is not the only time this happened, says, well, I drink wine for resveratrol. And I said, well, the sulfites in it kill all the resveratrol. Well, I said this to a priest last week. He said, yeah, I drink wine for resveratrol. And I said, I drink screwdrivers for vitamin C, too. And his wife just laughed. The new research on vitamin D, though, says you should get your vitamin D to 80 to 100. That's the new research. And that's good for the skin, good for detox. It's hard to get vitamin D up that high, so you have to kind of crank it up carefully and check it on lab. Don't just take it.
Exactly. The other thing is you want to try to avoid as many chemicals and toxins and pollutants as possible, like
toxic people
and household cleaners. So many of those smell so great, and they are so toxic. And the other thing is they're always, they're trying to put that stuff on their hands to get rid of bacteria. I can't tell how many people come in here and do that. The natural form of, or they sell some things like Myers has some things that's pretty good for that. But the hand sanitizer,
yeah. I've always said the biggest ingredient in hand sanitizer is called paranoia. Quit it. It's not good for you.
Yeah, I mean, because you're just putting chemicals in your body.
Alcohol should go on the inside, not on your hands. Oh, I'm sorry.
Soaps. You have to watch the soaps. And I have a lot of women tell me I have urinary tract infections all the time. Well, most of them are using perfumed soaps. So you need to watch that, taking sit-down baths and using the perfumed soaps will pretty much guarantee you're going to keep a urinary tract infection.
Or chemical sensitivity, and it's hard to tell the difference.
Okay. Air fresheners. How many of us are doing that and hanging them in our cars?
That's an invitation to cancer, according to some research scientist.
Mm-hmm. Bug sprays. Now we can mist our yards with them.
Yeah, I do diatomaceous earth. Throw it out in front of my, the electric blow thing that blows a leaf blower. And diatomaceous earth is not harmful. And it's not harmful to my worms. I have such a beautiful, rich, fertile yard that the armadillo is tearing up.
Armadillo loves our yard. He comes and digs every night, and he helps us aerate.
Yeah,
so he's trying to help us with...
I chased him with a spear the other night, but I didn't want to go in the neighbor's yard and get arrested.
We've not caught him yet.
Because you can't shoot where we live, but I think I'm fixing to anyway.
However, Dr. Lewis is a great hunter. He caught a raccoon in his trap, which we let go, and he caught a possum in his trap, which he felt so sorry for. He fed it a can of sardines.
And fed it water because I think he'd been there a little while. He was happy when he left.
But we still have no armadillo. He's got away.
Armadillo's not going to be so lucky.
But see, they like our yard because it's chemical free.
Yeah.
And that's the point. You want to make sure that you're getting rid of as many of these chemicals because they're not good for you either.
Healthy soil produces healthier food too. So be careful where you buy your food. If you can get it from the local farmer and you know they're not using all the chemicals and herbicides and pesticides, you would be much, much better off. And it does show in your skin.
Yeah, and the big one is pharmaceutical drugs. It is so rare for somebody that's over 40 years old at this point to not be on a pharmaceutical drug. Not that they are not needed for some things sometimes, but they are very overdone in a whole lot of circumstances. And those will age you quickly.
My cardiologist says, why are you not on a drug? I said, have you not looked out in your waiting room?
I mean, literally, you can see when someone's gone from doing natural health to they've got put on pharmaceutical drugs. And
I've seen friends die much quicker because it was a cascade of this drug caused this symptom. Well, then you get on another one, then and on and on and on. So think about your hormone level because that has everything to do with skin too. All right, folks. I hope this is kind of sort of entertaining and enlightening to some degree, but one thing leads to the other, so it's all connected.
So rashes, wrinkles, aging,
acne,
and gut health, all from the gut, folks, women, children, whoever's listening. So make sure we address the gut, and then we'll be here next time with another show. Hopefully about energy, because we'll be having a whole bunch of it by then, and we'll be able to share with you our results, all of our new Mitocore. So hope you guys have a very blessed week.